शास्त्र विचारनैक निपुनो सद्धर्म संस्थापको लोकानां हितकारिणौ त्रिभुवने मन्यौ शरण्याकरो राधा कृष्ण पदारविन्द भजना नन्देन मत्तालिकौ वन्दे रूपसनातनौ रघुयुगौ श्रीजीवगोपालको श्रीगौरङ्गगुणानवर्णनविदौ श्रद्धा समृद्धान्वितौ पापोत्तापनिकृन्तनौ तनुभृताम् गोविन्दगानामृतै आनन्दाम्बुदिवर्धनैकनिपुनौ कैवल्यनिस्तारकौ वन्दे रूपसनातनौ रघुयुगौ श्रीजीवगोपालको त्यक्त्वा तूर्णमहेशमण्डलपति श्रेणिं सदा तुच्छवान् भूत्वा दीनगणेशको करुणया गोपीनपन्ताश्रितौ गोपीभावरसामृताब्धिलहरी कल्लोलमग्नौ मुहुर्वन्दे रूपसनातनौ रघुयुगौ श्रीजीवगोपालको कूजत् कोकिलहंससारसगणा कीर्णे मयूराकुले नानारत्ननिबद्धमूलवितपा श्रीयुक्तवृन्दावने राधाकृष्णमहर्निशं प्रभजतौ जीवर्तदौ यौ मुदा वन्दे रूपसनातनौ रघुयुगौ श्रीजीवगोपालको सांख्यापूर्वकनामगाननटिभिः कालावसानीकृतौ निद्राहार विहारकादिविजितौ चत्यन्तदीनौ च यौ राधाकृष्णगुणास्मृतेर्मधुरिमा नन्देन सम्मोहितौ वन्दे रूपसनातनौ रघुयुगौ श्रीजीवगोपालको राधाकुण्डतटे कलिन्दतनया तीरे च वंशीवटे प्रेमोन्मादवसादशेषदशया ग्रस्तौ प्रमत्तौ सदा गायन्तौ च कदा हरेर्गुणवरम् भावाभिभवतौ मुदा वन्दे रूपसनातनौ रघुयुगौ श्रीजीवगोपालको हे राधे ब्रज देवी के चललिते हे नंद सूनो कुता श्री गोवर्धन कल्प पाद पतले कालिंदिवने कुता घोषन्तविति सर्वतो व्रजपुरे खेदैर्महाविह्वलौ वन्दे रूपसनातनौ रघुयुगौ श्रीजीवगोपालको वन्दे रूपसनातनौ रघुयुगौ श्रीजीवगोपालको वन्दे रूपसनातनौ रघुयुगौ श्रीजीवगोपालको ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम् वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणललिता शाखान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभयेव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So I welcome one and all to the part 2 of this lecture, which is called as the Sambandha Acharya. We are churning our discussions on Sanatana Goswami and his glories. As we spoke in the first week, that the glories of Sanatana Goswami, they are innumerable. In fact, to discuss about a Vaishnava and his glories is like to show a lamp before the sun. The Vaishnava being like the sun, he has infinite amount of glories and pastimes, and what we can actually achieve in the limited time of 1 hour to discuss about his glories, it is very, very difficult. However, I thank all you devotees for giving me an opportunity. I thank Prabhuji for arranging this lecture. Thank Sham Sundar Jagannath Prabhu for giving me an opportunity, bringing this opportunity to connect with all of you devotees so that we can churn the nectar of our one of the greatest acharyas. And we saw him as Muni Ratna, one of the rubies and emeralds of our acharya parampara, who is none other than Sanatana Goswami. I was just telling to Satyanareshwar Prabhu that first part we had some presentations because there were more philosophies, but now we have entered into the pastimes. So presentations are not required. In fact, we will read about the presentations and we will learn about the presentations of the acharyas. So we continue our journey from where we left. Sanatan Goswami, who was also called as Sakar Malik under the Nawab Hussain Shah. A very interesting anecdote was shared with me by Sham Sundar Jagannath Prabhu after we finished the lecture. In fact, he scourged through the pages of Navdeep Dham Mahatmya and he sent me an interesting quote, what Sri Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes. We see that when the Lord comes down to do his pastimes, everybody joins in, be it the demons or be it the demigods, everybody comes to do the pastimes. Just like in Ramayana, we see that the various monkey Sena was none other than the demigods. Vali was Indra, Sugriva was somebody else, Vishwakarma was there. So there are many people who do pastimes, and Jay and Vijay himself came as Ravan and Kumbhakaran. So these people come down for enabling the pastimes of the Lord. So while we were talking so much ill about Nawab Hussain Shah and how he had put Sakar Malik and Dabir Khas under so much difficulty, and Dabir Khas, who is none other than Rupa Goswami, who had already resigned and left for Vrindavan or left for Puri to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sakar Malik was not that um, fortunate. He was put behind bars. So Jagannath Govind Prabhu, Sham Sundar Jagannath Prabhu, what he did, he looked into Navdeep Dham Mahatmya and he exactly gave the verse where it is mentioned that Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Nawab Hussain Shah was none other than Jarasandha in his previous life in Dwapara Yuga. So it is the same Jarasandha who is coming as Nawab Hussain Shah to add on to the pastimes of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. That was a very wonderful search. Thank you so much for bringing that notice from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He was such a wonderful Acharya in our parampara. So we saw that how due to these pastimes, Sanatan Goswami, who is also the Lavanga Manjari, he was put inside the prison, and how he bribed the prisoner, the warden, and said that you should let me escape. And finally the warden gave away, and we saw how it was ethical or unethical, and we decided that it was ethical because it was to reach Krishna as a goal. And he was escaping, and he had a servant along with him who was none other than Ishan. This Ishana kept some gold coins with him so that he thought that some journey of Sanatan Goswami, while he is trying to go to Banaras, where he has heard that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is there and he would like to go and meet him. So he had kept some gold coins with him until they reached a great mountain called as the Pataria Mountain. Right now in the contemporary world, this is called as the Raj Mahal Hills. This is near a place called Chota Nagpur. This is not in Nagpur, this is actually in Bihar. So it's called as the Raj Mahal Hills. At that place, he wanted to cross over this mountain. So he thought that let me take the help of the locals, and he met a landowner. And this landowner, back in those days, his primary activity was of robbery and thievery. And he was involved in a lot of burglary activities. So he used to loot the people who are travelers who used to come that way as well. But he used to pose himself as a very good landowner. So he got to know that Sanatan Goswami wants to cross over this mountain. So he gave an exclusive welcome to Sanatana Goswami and Ishana. And looking at this welcome to a stranger, Sanatana Goswami got very doubtful. He gives a very important learning at this time. If somebody who is a stranger but acts with us as very nicely and treats us as if we are their kith and kin, though we have never met them before, we have just met them a couple of minutes before, Sanatan Goswami says you should be very careful. Seems like they need something that is there with us. So what is there with Sanatan Goswami? He was thinking like this. In fact, this is very true. The great acharyas or the great sages, they don't carry anything with them which is very wealthy from a material standpoint. But what they carry with them is actually the greatest wealth of all the 14 worlds. And we see this pastime even in Ramayana. When the hunter who later turned into Valmiki, the sage. Previously, he was a hunter. In his previous birth, he was actually the son of Varuna called Harith. And when he got cursed by the Sanat Kumaras because they couldn't discuss Bhagavatam and he was making a lot of noise, so they gave him a curse that you will actually be born amongst the peacocks and the various birds which will create a lot of noise. So that's why he took a birth of a hunter and he was hunting a lot of people. And later he moved into robbery. And one day he saw these 7 sages passed by. He jumped in front of them, took out a dagger and said, "Give your wealth." These 7 sages looked at each other and started laughing. He said that we don't have any wealth. He said, "No, I don't believe you." So he tied all of these 7 people up and then he said, "Give me the wealth." Then they had the conversation. Then he had to go back. You all know the story that he went back to his family, asked, "Will you share the part of my karma because I'm killing so many people?" They said, "No, we won't partake your karma." So they came back and he came back and he untied all the 7 sages. And the 7 sages said a very beautiful thing. He said, "You asked us that do you have any wealth and surrender it unto you. There is only one wealth that we have, that is the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare." This is the actual wealth that the acharyas carry in their heart. The power of the holy name. The holy name is so powerful. So much so that sometimes devotees even mention the power of the holy name, the power of the paraphernalia of the Lord. These are much greater than the Lord themselves. How do we know? The Lord tried to float the stone on the sea, but the stone sank. But the minute the holy name was written on the stone floated. So the acharyas glorify, the devotee poets glorify this in such a way that the holy name of the Lord is very powerful. So coming back to the topic, the real wealth in Sanatana Goswami's heart was actually the holy name, was actually the remembrance of Krishna, the eagerness to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This was the original wealth that he had. But this landowner thought that there is this person right now who has a lot of wealth and maybe I should try to steal it. So he made a devious plan and he got to know from an astrologer that there are some gold coins which are being carried by his servant. So he made an elaborate plan in which in the night of night he can actually capture Sanatana Goswami and slay him and take the gold coins. When Sanatana Goswami saw the strange behavior of the landowner, he immediately asked Ishan, "Do you carry something which is very valuable?" And Ishana said that I am carrying these 8 gold coins. And Sanatana Goswami said, "How foolish, this important life of ours, which is supposed to be dedicated to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to be dedicated in Krishna's service, would have been lost for these puny 8 gold coins." He immediately surrendered the gold coins to the landowner and said, "Thank you very much." The landowner was surprised, who was also a thief. He was surprised that this Goswami is actually very, very honest. And before even trying to kill him, he himself is presenting the wealth. He said, "No, I won't take it. Maybe I will take you all for free." But Sanatana Goswami knew that you should never depend upon a materialistic person's words. So he said, "No, thank you very much. From here, I will take it forward myself." And he told Ishana to go back away. And he sent a very beautiful instruction. He said that anybody who is willing to be renunciant need to let go of all the wealth. He needs to be only dependent upon Krishna. Rakshati iti vishwaso. This is one of the limbs of surrender. Rakshati iti vishwaso, that we always depend upon Krishna as the only person who will actually protect us. And this is also seen in so many pastimes in Srimad Bhagavatam, where Draupadi, she was holding on to her sari with 2 fingers, and Dwarkadish was sitting in Dwarka and he was having his prasadam. And Rukmani was constantly saying, why don't you go help her? She's calling you out. Krishna says, no, she still believes that her two fingers can hold her and rescue her. And at the end, when Draupadi felt that she is helpless and she let go of both her hands and she said, Govinda, she called him out, Rakshamam Sharanam Prabhu. When she actually called him out, Dwarkadish, for the next second, he was not there before his Bhojan plate. He was there in the Kuru assembly, providing many saris, chiffon, nylon, silk, whatever saris you need, he was providing it. And we saw this last time that is Rakshati iti Vishwaso, having full faith that Krishna will protect. So Sanatana Goswami sent away Ishan because he still was attached to the material wealth and he felt that wealth will protect him. And we see in nowadays also the great people who have so much of wealth with them are succumbing to the virus. What is protecting them? The wealth cannot protect them. It is only Krishna who protects, it's only Krishna who takes. There are mysterious dealings between Vaishnavas and Krishna, and that only Krishna and the Vaishnavas understand. So Sanatana Goswami understood that these pastimes are taking place and Ishana is not worth to carry forward this journey. So he sent him back and he proceeded himself alone to the northern part of Patna, which is called Hajipur, where his brother-in-law called Shrikant stays. And he went there and Shrikant saw that his brother-in-law Sakar Malik Sanatan Goswami is here and he gave him all the prasadam. He was well nourished and he also gave him a beautiful woolen blanket so that he can travel the journey to Banaras from Hajipur and he can protect himself from the cold and the wind. So Sanatana Goswami was traveling for many days. There were no trains. There were no aircrafts. You had to travel by foot. You had to drink water from many places. Some might be contaminated, some might be good. There were no chappals, no proper shoes. There were no proper roads. Sometimes there were thorns, sometimes there were stones. Sometimes there were harsh weather, sometimes it was favorable weather. So due to all these hardships, he traveled, and as he traveled, his bodily conditions became very weak. He had not kept himself, so his beard became very long. In fact, he had even little bit of mustache back in those days, and he had this woolen chadar. People thought he was a very strange fakir of a Muslim Mohammedan family. And he came to know that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was staying in Chandrasekhar Acharya's house. This was the pastime of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When he comes to Banaras, he always stays in Chandrasekhar Acharya's house. Okay, Zoom is telling me that the meeting will end in 10 minutes. If it stops, we will again reconnect and we will again join the same meeting. So Chandrasekhar Acharya's house, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was staying, but he would have prasadam in Tapan Mishra's house. So Sanatana Goswami knew this, that he is staying in Chandrasekhar Acharya's house. So Sanatana Goswami, finding out where Chandrasekhar Acharya's house is there, he went to Chandrasekhar Acharya's house, but he did not knock on the door. He just sat down near the veranda, near the porch, outside the house, just like a beggar and a mendicant. He was just shivering due to the cold and the travel, and he was trembling. But in the heart of hearts, he was very happy that he has reached the place which is just differentiated by a singular wall. That Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is on the other side. He's the Lord of his hearts is on the other side. His spiritual master is on the other side. But he didn't have the courage to go and knock on the door. He was just sitting outside. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, being the Supreme Lord himself, sitting in everybody's heart as the super soul, he knew who has come outside. So he told Chandrasekhar Acharya that you please go out and bring that pure devotee who is sitting outside the house. Please bring him in. He's a very great Bhagavata. He understands the Bhagavatam in full. Please bring him that very great devotee. So Chandrasekhar Acharya thought that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself is recommending somebody. So he went outside and opened the door and came outside, but he didn't see anybody. He looked left, he looked right, and he only saw this frail person sitting out there with a blanket, and he thought that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that it is a great Vaishnava. He is not having tilak. He is not having the bodily symptoms of a Vaishnava with 13 tilaks everywhere. He is not wearing the dhoti and the kurta, and he is not looking jubilant in the face. This could not be the person. So Chandrasekhar Acharya returned and said, "Oh my Lord, there is nobody out there." Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "No, Chandrasekhar Acharya, you please go and see. There is a person sitting there." And Acharya said, "There is only a Muslim beggar who is sitting at the outskirts of my house, but there is nobody else." He said, "That is the person whom I want. Please bring him here." And immediately Chandrasekhar Acharya understood that the Vaishnava need not be always in a proper get-up like a tilak and in the proper exterior dresses. They can be in an attire which might be materially not conducive to be seen, but still in the heart of hearts, they can be carrying Krishna within. So he immediately went outside and brought Sanatan Goswami. He was shivering. He was saying, "No, no, 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 please don't touch me. I'm very, very impure. I've traveled. I've not taken bath, and I'm very impure." And when he saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu inside, he just fell down like a stick and paid his full dandavats to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he was paying repeated obeisances and saying, "Thank you very much. Thank you very much." At that time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu touched him and picked him by his shoulders, and he brought him here. And Sanatana Goswami is saying, "Oh my Lord, you are so pure. I am so fallen. I'm such a fallen entity. Please don't touch me." But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu just held him by his shoulders, and immediately, poof, he embraced him. And Sanatana Goswami was wriggling himself. He said, "Mahaprabhu, please don't do this. I am the most fallen. And I have not taken bath even externally or internally. I am fallen. I'm not worthy of your embrace. Why are you embracing me? This is so difficult." And what did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu say? "I am embracing you because let me become pure." Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave this wonderful words that to purify myself, I am embracing you, Sanatan Goswami. Hearing this, everybody was astonished by the mercy that Sanatan Goswami was getting. He was getting it live from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was getting the embrace. And immediately, he introduced everyone to Sanatan Goswami. And he told Tapan Mishra that please get a proper clothing for him. So immediately a very nice, pristine white dhoti was arranged for Sanatan Goswami. And right there in front of him, even the sticker of the label of that dhoti was not removed. A white, pristine dhoti was given. Sanatan Goswami said, "Is there any old cloth with you?" He said, "No, no." Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "I should give you good clothes. And here is the cloth." He said, "No, no, these clothes are not good for me." So immediately took an old cloth and he started tearing at many places, and he said, "This will become my kaupin. This will become my dhoti." He started wearing loin clothes. He was so renunciated that he didn't even want fresh clothes to be adorning his body. But he still had that beautiful chadar which Srikant had given. So looking at this, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was extremely happy looking at the renunciation. And Mahaprabhu said, "Sanatan Goswami, you are really very detached, but seems like you have not had prasadam for so many days. So I order Tapan Mishra, where we have prasadam, please feed him excellent prasadam." And Tapan Mishra said, "Yes, everything is ready. We will feed Sanatan Goswami and we'll give him a full feast." Sanatan Goswami said, "Please excuse me, my lord. I am not here to feast on great things. If needed, I will actually do Madhukari and get what I need. I am a renunciant. Please don't feed me excess prasad." Seeing the humility of Sanatan Goswami, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and everybody within that place, Chandrasekhar Acharyas, they could understand the greatness of Sanatan Goswami. Here he was the same boy, Sakar Malik, the same person from Ramakeli, who had paid down the obeisances, and in the heart of hearts, Sanatan Goswami had been initiated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Here he is, after a couple of years, meeting again Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and this meeting was very, very exquisite. So immediately the next day, when Sanatana Goswami was doing Madhukari, and he was also going around, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to see him from the corner of his eye that he was still having his woolen blanket. And then Sanatana Goswami understood that this woolen blanket is becoming an impediment, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not liking it. So what did he do? So he went all the way to the banks of Ganges, where a washerman was washing torn clothes. And he went to him and humbly begged him, and he said, "Can you give me these torn clothes? In exchange, I will give you this nice woolen blanket." The washerman thought that you are making mockery of my poverty. He said, "Please go away. You look like a Vaishnava, but why are you doing this?" He said, "No, I really mean it. Can you take this nice woolen blanket and instead can you give me the torn clothes?" The washerman couldn't understand what was happening. He thought maybe he's seriously saying it. And when he actually gave the torn clothes, Sanatan Goswami took it as if it was his life and soul, and he gave away his nice woolen blanket. And when he wore the torn clothes and came before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exclaimed and said, "Sanatan Goswami, when you met me, you were 99% detached. By sending away that woolen cloth, you are 100% detached." And he again embraced him. Such was the glory of our previous acharyas. They were so glorious that they used to leave everything, all the material benefits, for the propagation of holy name. So we will continue to churn the glories of Sanatan Goswami. I think the meeting is coming to an end. So we will, once it drops off, less than 1 minute it says. So we will rejoin the link. So I request everybody to drop and rejoin so that we can continue the pastimes. Hare Krishna. So here he was giving away the very costliest shawl or the blanket that he got to the washerman, and he took away the old clothes, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very, very happy looking at this. He was extremely pleased by the renunciation mentality of Sanatana Goswami. And Sanatana Goswami actually begged. He said, "Mahaprabhu, you are repeatedly embracing me." Yes. We have started the recording, Prabhu. So we are repeatedly embracing me, but I am the most fallen. I am the most fallen person. I even do not know who am I? Why am I suffering? Why am I born? What is the reason of this suffering? Who is the Supreme Lord? What are we supposed to do? How are we supposed to proceed towards getting liberation? Is liberation the highest? All these questions Sanatana Goswami posed before the Lord. And then Sanatana Goswami was instructed by Lord Chaitanya. And we will keep it very brief, the instructions. But these instructions are the most beautiful instructions given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started by saying to Sanatana Goswami about the jiva or the spirit soul. He mentioned that the jiva or the spirit soul is none other than Sat Chit Ananda. It's full of eternal knowledge and bliss, and it is different from this body. We hear about this pastime, we hear about this tattva again and again and again and again in Krishna consciousness. But every time we hear this, we feel that it is the most rudimentary or it is the most basic. But we see time and time again, it is the greatest learning that we are supposed to understand, that we are not this body, but we are a spirit soul. because that is that one knowledge which changes the entire paradigm of Krishna consciousness. As long as we are there thinking about us in the material point of view, spiritual progress is very, very difficult. But the minute we understand that we are not this body, we are a spirit soul. And here we have an exemplary example, a person like Sanatana Goswami, who is already liberated while living, is asking this basic knowledge to be explained. So this is not very easy to understand. In fact, this realization, when it dawns upon us, when this realization comes to us, that's when we can say that we are truly self-realized. So he mentioned about how this spirit soul is completely aloof from the matter and the body, and it never perishes, and how it is unique as Sat Chit and Ananda. Then he went on to explain, so while this Jiva is there, there is also Krishna, and he has three different energies. One is called as Antaranga Shakti, by which his internal energy, by which he does all the pastimes. Then there is something called as Bahiranga Shakti, his external energy, his exterior energy, by which the creation and the Maya and the Jivas get deluded by these external energy. And the third energy is the Tatastha Shakti, the marginal potencies where the Jivas or the spirit souls exist. So like this, he mentioned about Krishna, he mentioned about Jiva. Then he talked about how this Jiva suffers in the material world. This Jiva, when it is completely deluded by Maya, his external energy, and due to the false ego, it starts thinking that this Jiva, this soul is the pure enjoyer. Instead of serving Krishna, it starts to serve another set of purposes, due to which it starts to suffer. So he spoke about soul, he spoke about Krishna, he spoke about why the soul suffers is because it doesn't serve Krishna, it serves the Maya. And he gave a very beautiful example. And I remember this example when this was given by His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj. He gives it in a very nice, wonderful way. He calls this as the hubu-dubu logic. Sounds very funny if you actually hear the hubu-dubu logic. And what is this hubu-dubu logic? The hubu-dubu logic is that many people in this world, if you ask them, why are you living? They will say, I want happiness. Happiness, Prabhu, is the most important thing. Why are you living? I want good gadi, good bangla, because I will be happy. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is explaining what is real happiness. And Jayapataka Maharaj uses the same section of instructions and he says this is hubu-dubu. What is hubu-dubu? Imagine somebody is actually catching your shikha or your hair and is actually pushing you inside a bucket of water. And you are nicely sitting like this, but somebody is catching you by your hair and pushing you inside the water. What will happen? We will try to breathe, but we are not fishes. We need oxygen, but how will we breathe? We want breathing, right? So and then we want just somebody to pull us out of this, and we want this fresh air. At that time, somebody pulls you up. And we take the breath, half a second. We take a breath as if it's our life and soul is dependent upon it. Why? Because the next minute you are going inside again. So Jayapataka Maharaj was saying that this half a second that we come out from the water and we take a breath, that is actually happiness. Happiness is not a constant state of being. It is in between the suffering of going inside the water. How long is the happiness when compared to what is there in the water? It's absolutely minimal or minuscule. So in fact, being inside the water is suffering, and happiness is just temporary. So many people feel that happiness is actually absence of suffering, which is partly true, but not completely true, says Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He says true happiness is achieved only when we serve Krishna, because he is the source of all beings. He is the person whom all the demigods worship. Because all other happiness that we get in this material world are temporary in nature, but the only happiness that we get by serving Krishna is permanent. Sanatana Goswami imbibed this mood in his heart as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was explaining. And then he was interested to know how the Supreme Lord, who is very merciful, revives the soul. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained that the same Krishna, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, sits in the heart of a devotee as a super soul. He comes outside externally as a spiritual master, as a sadhu, and he is also available as a medium of Shastra or the Vedas. And then he goes on to explain how the Vedas establish this truth as Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. What is Sambandha? Sambandha is nothing but establishment of relationship between a Jiva and Krishna. What is Abhideya? Is acting on that relationship. What is Prayojana? Is the fruit of acting on that relationship. We can learn this by a very simple example. Just like we go to a university, getting enrollment into the university, getting enrollment into the college is the Sambandha. That is the relationship that we are starting with education. But minute you enroll into a university, you will have first semester, second semester, third semester, exams, unit test, assignments. You'll have to write all of that for different subject matters. That is acting on that relationship. That is studying for those exams is the Abhideya. Acting on the relationship. And what is the Prayojana? Prayojana is the fruit of acting on. If you actually pass all those examinations, if you pass all those subjects, what do you get at the end? You get graduation. So similarly, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained that establishment of Sambandha is with Krishna. Acting of that relationship is the bhakti or devotional service, and the fruit of Prayojana of acting in bhakti is none other than Krishna Prem. So this beautiful tattva was explained further by Sanatana Goswami, hence he was also called as a Sambandha Acharya. He explained the first part of how to establish the relationship, and we will hear more from Shyam Sundar Jagannath Prabhu when he talks about those 5 minutes of japa talk at the end, because that is our primary motive, that is our primary medium to establish the relationship with Krishna. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went on to explain to Sanatana Goswami the glories of bhakti, the devotional service. In fact, this is very, very beautiful. You know why this is very beautiful? In fact, we can have a separate lecture on this. Because if you look at Narada Bhakti Sutra, Narada himself, who is the epitome of devotional service, he speaks about devotional service. And would you like to know, my dear devotees, what he speaks about devotional service? The first thing he says in Narada Bhakti Sutra, chapter number 2, he says that Anyamataha. That means he says, regarding devotional service, if somebody has to know, please let me tell you upfront that various people have various definitions. Prabhus and Matajis, this is not my definition. This is Narada's definition. Anyamataha. He's saying that many people have many definitions. So, but what is devotional service? How do you define bhakti? So till now, if somebody asks you, how do you define bhakti? Many sampradayas, they have tried to define bhakti. Somebody defines it as, the 9 processes of devotional service, but that is process of devotional service. It is not defining the 360 degree of devotional service. Some people say in Sri Sampradaya that it is actually Sharanagati, the surrendering to Krishna is the devotional service, but that is again a medium of devotional service. Again, it is not defining devotional service. So who would define this devotional service? And even Narada Muni says, Kata iti gargaha. He says, Garga Muni says, devotional service is listening to the pastimes. Shandilya says something else. Kapila says something else. So Narada Muni says, I also say something else. So like this, if in Narada Bhakti Sutra, if you actually read, he says that there are different definitions. There is only one personality, Prabhus and Matajis, who gave the 360-degree explanation of what is devotional service. That was none other than our younger brother of Sanatan Goswami, which was Rupa Goswami. Anya Abhilashita Shunyam. That verse that he gave in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, Rupa Goswami, that's the 360-degree perfect explanation of what is devotional service. Anukulena Krishna Anushiranam Bhakti Rityuttama. This is the 360-degree of devotional service. But here, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is explaining the glories of bhakti by giving an analogy, because he knows Rupa Goswami will write Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. He will write Nectar of Devotion. And let me tell you, that shloka has become the emblem of devotional service even in other sampradayas. Even today, if somebody wants to speak about bhakti, even in other sampradayas, they take Rupa Goswami's words. Such is the glory of Rupa Goswami. Of course, we are not talking about the glory, but I just wanted to give an anecdote of glory of Rupa Goswami. There are 4 books that that Srila Prabhupada told us to read when coming to Krishna consciousness. What are those 4 books? Nectar of Instruction, Nectar of Devotion, Bhagavad Gita, and Isopanishad. These are the 4 books. If you detailedly see, Isopanishad and Bhagavad Gita are spoken by the Lord. One is the Vedas, the Upanishads, and the other is the Song of God. So one is God, and the rest 2 books are of Rupa Goswami. So that means the words of Rupa Goswami are right there with the words of the Lord. And that's what Srila Prabhupada is actually saying. But here Sanatana Goswami is explained the beautiful glories of bhakti, the devotional service. And what is the glory he's mentioned? He gives a very beautiful pastime. He gives the pastime of Sarvagnya, an astrologer, where he mentions to a person that where his father and his ancestors has kept a pot of gold, and he has to go beneath a tree and he has to dig for this pot of gold. So this person is very interested to know where the pot of gold is. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was explaining, the astrologer said that you should be very careful while you are digging for the pot of gold. And this person asked why it is so. And the astrologer said, if you dig towards the north, there will be a black serpent and a poisonous snake that will come outside and bite you. He said, okay, then I will not dig the north. Then he said, but if you dig west, a ghost will come and it will haunt you. He said, Baba, this is very difficult. Please tell me where the gold is. You're telling me if there is a north, there is a snake. If there is west, there is a ghost. What about south? He said, if you dig south, there is a bee nest and a wasp nest. You know, these hornets, these yellow jacket hornets and bees and wasps. When you dig that, these bees will come out and they'll start biting you. If we were talking to the astrologer, we would say, thank you very much. I don't need the gold. I don't need anything. But here he was asking, but there was one direction left. He said, if you dig little to the west, you will get the pot of gold. So Sanatana Goswami immediately understood what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was saying. He was saying that if you actually dig to the north, a black poisonous snake will come and devour you. He said that if you are looking for the pot of gold called bhakti, and if you follow the northern process, which is actually ascending to the north, means ascending and getting liberation. If you're thinking about mukti, it is, or merging into the Brahman, it is like losing your identity by devouring by a snake. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying bhakti is not for getting liberation, and he's comparing to devouring yourself by a black snake. And he's saying if you actually go to west, a ghost will haunt you. He's talking about speculative knowledge. Many people speculate about knowledge. And he's saying speculators are always kept on their head. This knowledge gets covered. It is like a ghost haunting you. So speculators don't get pure bhakti. Those who want liberation don't get pure bhakti. What about the bees and the wasps? They are the people who are looking for ritualistic karma kanda sections. These people who are in karma kanda sections, they want some material pleasures. And that is like stinging of the bees and the wasps. So if you want the real pot of gold, you have to look east, and that is by following the scriptures, following the Braj Gopis, following the Vrindavan Vasis, following the Vrajbasis. And then he goes on to explain the glories of the Vrajvasis, how they are the most glorious. And he also explains how Krishna appears in the different yugas. He says he comes in Satyuga as white, he comes in Treta Yuga in green, he comes in the Dwapara Yuga as bluish color, Shama Varna, and he stops there. Sanatan Goswami says, I have a doubt. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, what is that? He said, in Kali Yuga, what color he comes in? He said, that you have to look into scriptures. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu doesn't say what color. And Sanatana Goswami immediately says, I have heard Suvarna Varno Hemango Varangat Chandanangati. Suvarna Varno, you are in the golden complexion, and he will be carrying a sannyasi stick. He will be going like a mad man, chanting the holy names of the Lord. And because he will be in lot of separation, sandalwood pulp will be applied on top of him. Varangat Chandanangatihi. And that will be you, oh my Lord Gauranga. He said, let's go to the next topic. Then immediately Chaitanya Mahaprabhu pushes to the next topic and he says, the most important thing are the Vrajvasis and following in the footsteps of the Vrajvasis. And finally, he says the another most important topic is the 64 limbs of devotion. In fact, that is a lecture in itself. We should sometime read Rupa Goswami's books of Nectar of Devotion, 64 limbs of devotion. And in that he says, Sadhu Sanganama Kirtan, Bhagavata Shravan, Mathura Vasa Sri Murtiya Shraddhaya Shravan. What is the most important thing? The 5 top limbs are the most important things. Out of the 64, the 5 top things. Sadhu Sangha, association with devotees, the association that we are having here, Katha Shravan and all of that. Bhagavata Shravan, reading Srimad Bhagavatam. And Srimad Bhagavatam should be read from different points of view, from the different points of the devotee poets. Let me tell you, my devotees, there is no other book greater than Srimad Bhagavatam. Of course, Chaitanya Charitamrita is there. It's about the devotees and the rasa, but Srimad Bhagavatam Amala Puranam. It's beautiful when we read from the devotee poets, angles after angle. One single pastime can be seen in multiple angles. It's as if millions of cameras are put together and seen from different angles. That is the beauty of Srimad Bhagavatam. Why Krishna lifted the butter? There will be million poets, million cameras giving you million answers. That is the beauty of Srimad Bhagavatam. So he says Bhagavata Shravan, and that's why it's endless. Rasamalayam. It is beautiful. It is full of nectar. So association, reading Bhagavat, Sri Murti Sevan, that means to render worship unto the deities, staying in the Dham and doing what? Nama Sankirtan. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This is what is important. And he, after giving these wonderful instructions, he actually embraced Sanatana Goswami and said, now I empower you. You please go to Vrindavan and excavate the various pastime places of the Vraja Leela. We all know the pastime. I know the time is short, so I'm quickly moving into the Vraj pastimes. It is impossible without telling this pastime of Sanatana Goswami and Radha Madan Mohan. Of course, there were many pastimes in between. We can churn them at later stage. But there was this beautiful deity of Madan Mohan which Sanatana Goswami got. And Madan Mohan himself came in the dream and said, please give me to this Baba who will come in the morning. I would like to go with him. And that devotee came and offered the Madan Mohan deities to Sanatana Goswami. And Sanatana Goswami said, I am a mendicant. I am staying below each tree. I don't even have a house to share. I don't even stay one night more beneath a tree because sometimes I might get attachment that this tree is better than that tree. And I remember a very beautiful pastime here. This was told by Radhanath Maharaj when he actually went to Vrindavan Yatra. So back in the days when Radhanath Maharaj was actually, when Srila Prabhupada was there, he was serving him very nicely. One day, Srila Prabhupada came and gave a lecture, I think in West Virginia or somewhere. Radhanath Maharaj was a young boy and a sannyasi. And at that time, Srila Prabhupada said, we should be very renunciated. We don't need a lot of big houses and temples and marble stones. We should be ready to be living like Goswamis. So Radhanath Maharaj took this very much into the heart. And on that night, generally his eating was not like very opulent like the other brahmacharis. Back in those days also he was very austere. So he used to just eat some popcorn. He used to take some popcorn and he used to eat it. And they were sitting in a thatched roof brahmacharya ashram. Back in those days, the temple was not constructed. So it was a thatched roof brahmacharya ashram, like a Kolavecha Sridhar's house, which had holes on top and water was flowing from the top due to a rainy season. And here he was with wet dhoti and his in his famous t-shirt. He was there shivering and eating popcorn. And at that time, another god brother of his came there, I think Satswarup Maharaj or somebody, and said, Radhanath Maharaj, why are you sitting here? It's raining and why don't you find some shelter? At that time, Radhanath Maharaj said, maybe we are living very opulently under this brahmachari ashram. We should be living under the tree. And this god brother saw above the ashram ka chat nahi hai. There is no place to get proper treatment. There is water flowing. And what is the words that Radhanath Maharaj is saying? It's very opulent. We should not stay in such opulent buildings. We should stay underneath the tree. He said, and Prabhupada said it, our Goswami stayed like that. And at that time, the god brother said a very, very beautiful verse to keep Radhanath Maharaj inside the ashram. He said that, my dear Radhanath, it seems that you are more attached to the tree rather than the ashram. When he actually heard that statement, that you are more attached to the tree, then he actually understood that we should not be attached with anything. That is what Prabhupada said. So he stayed there and ate more popcorns. So Radhanath Maharaj says this very beautifully. Of course, I cannot render the way that he rendered it very beautifully. But such were our Goswamis that they stayed underneath the tree and they were not attached to the tree also. So such was the beautiful pastimes of Sanatana Goswami. So he told Madan Mohan, look, he used to talk to Krishna. Krishna said, Baba, whatever you give, I am happy. He said, look, I don't have anything. I do madhukari. Sometimes they will give some sukha roti, brajwasi roti, you will have to take. But Madan Mohan said, some achar I will get, no, some sabji. He said, nothing doing. Whatever you get. Today you will ask achar, tomorrow you will ask sabji, tomorrow you will ask gila sabji, then chappan bhog, then raj bhog, then malai prasad. All this I will not give, nothing doing. Whatever you get, I will give. He said, okay. I just want to be with you. And every day he used to worship this beautiful deities of Madan Mohan. One day this sukha roti when he was giving, Madan Mohan said, can you please give me some salt? Little salt. And Sanatana Goswami really got angry. He said, what namak you want? What salt you want? Today you will ask salt again, sabji. Look, I don't want. If you want salt, you are the person who has created everything. You only create salt. I don't know. I have time to only do my japa. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I don't have time for anything. At that very time, there was a Kapoor merchant who was traveling with a lot of jewels and wealth. He was traveling towards Dwarka and he had to cross the Yamuna river and he was going in a ship. And at that time, his ship actually ran ashore into the banks of Yamuna. And he was thinking, oh my God, if the ship doesn't move right now, people will come and attack and take all the wealth. And if I don't reach the place, my business will be lost and I will lose all the money. So he was in a catch-22 situation and he didn't know what to do. So at that time, a very beautiful boy arrived in front of that Kapoor, the merchant. And he said, look, I can tell you the way, how to get out of this situation. He said, you are a small boy. What can you tell? He said, but I am a small boy, but I roam around this place with my cows. I know very beautiful what and all happens here. He said, okay, fine. What should I do? You know, there you see that on top, there is this Dwadash Aditya Tila. This is a place where 12 suns immediately emerged. We'll talk about that also. That place, there is a Baba who is sitting there and chanting Hare Krishna. He's very old. He's very weak. He can push you ask him, he has got some mystic power. He can push your case. He said, but you are saying he's old Baba. How is it? I said, I'm telling you, you go to him, ask him. He said, okay, fine. But where will I get him? He said, don't worry, maybe I will bring him here. And he said, okay, fine, you only go and bring him here. So Krishna actually went to the small boy and brought the Baba there. He said, Baba, why are you bringing me here? And Krishna himself was trying to push this ship in his invisible way so that it comes out. Huh? And then Sanatana Goswami, when he appeared there, he said that, look, my boat is struck, do something. And Sanatana Goswami understood. What he asked, what are you carrying? He said, I'm carrying a lot of jewels. If you actually allow the ship to pass by, then I will give you all the jewels. Sanatana Goswami said, I don't want any jewels. And the merchant was very confused. Why he doesn't want any jewels? He said, what else do you have? He said, I have a bag of salt. He said, I want that. That for me is important. Not for me, but there is one naughty boy out there who said, who don't want anything. Now I know that who has arranged this problem. So he actually connected two and two together. He knew it was Madan Mohan who has done this pastime. So look at this. Krishna himself got Sanatana Goswami there. Krishna pushed the boat just for a grain of salt so that he can glorify Sanatana Goswami. So much so that the Kapoor, the merchant, got his ship pushed. Krishna got his salt, and the Kapoor actually said, I will build a great temple for Madan Mohan, it under the request of Sanatana Goswami. And in fact, today, if you go to Vrindavan, that is the most iconic building, iconic temple figure. It is even in fact, the emblem of um, the very emblem of Vrindavan in itself. So this is the greatness of Sanatana Goswami. And this is the greatness of Madan Mohan. And such is the beautiful pastime of Sanatana Goswami. He rendered his services in Vrindavan to his Madan Mohan deity. In fact, this Madan Mohan is nowadays in Karoli. Of course, we can speak for many hours about Sanatana Goswami and his pastimes with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but the time is very short because I was also requested to speak just 5 minutes about our other Goswami, who was none other than Gopal Bhatta, whose disappearance also happened yesterday. But we will quickly speak about him. But before that, we would like to conclude by saying that Sanatana Goswami, okay, it again says 10 minutes, we'll have to rejoin back, but then I'll try to conclude. But Sanatana Goswami was always rendering his service to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Of course, he met a couple of times Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Puri, and he had written such beautiful works like Krishna Leela Stava. In fact, one of his greatest contribution is Hari Bhakti Vilas. It is like a guidebook manual for all the devotees. His younger brother wrote Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, whereas he wrote Hari Bhakti Vilas, Krishna Leela Stava, and the most beautiful work which will melt everybody's heart, which is Brihad Bhagavatamrita, talking about the greatest devotees of Krishna, and also talking about the journey of Gopakumar crossing the different places. In fact, if a soul crosses and how it reaches Golok Vrindavan and how it reaches the greatest achievement of this thing. In another 5 minutes, we can relog in. I'll let you know when you can relog in. So this was the greatest glories of Sanatana Goswami. He was always engaged in Krishna's service. Hence, he is also called as the Muni Ratna. He wrote such great scriptures on Sambandha. So we should all pray unto his lotus feet that he also blesses us so that he allows us through our sadhana bhakti to establish the principal relationship with Madan Mohan. And I feel very blessed that this opportunity was given to me because I am serving here in Navi Mumbai and the name of the deities are Sri Sri Radha Madan Mohan. So it is very grateful. I see that it is a direct blessings of Madan Mohan that we could speak about Sanatana Goswami. And another interesting fact that I wanted to share with you, last week we lost our greatest commander in Prabhupada's army in terms of Bhakticharu Swami Maharaj, and we dedicated our class unto him. And it is such glorious to see. I say that Vaishnavas and Krishna are very glorious to each other. Their activities are mysterious. Bhakticharu Swami Maharaj took sannyasa in Prayag Kshetra near Kumbh Mela on a Guru Purnima day from Srila Prabhupada. He left this world on a Guru Purnima day. His favorite deities, which he established in Ujjain, were Radha Madan Mohan. On the same day Sanatana Goswami passed away, his deities were also Radha Madan Mohan. So such are the glorious passing away of the bhaktas or the devotees. And we can surely by these arrangements know that such great commanders of our movement have gone back to serve Srila Prabhupada. So this is the glories of Sanatana Goswami. We will try to re-log in. We will just see for 5 minutes a very beautiful pastime of Gopal Bhatta Goswami, which was requested to me. So I request you to re-log in now. And after that, we can have question and answers, after which there will be a 5-minute japa talk. So I'll stop my pastimes on Sanatana Goswami. Shri Sanatana Goswami ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. We can stop and re-log in. Hare Krishna. So what happened is that during this pastime, Srimati Radhika was actually carried by Krishna on her shoulders, because she said, I've become very tired by doing these pastimes. And then Krishna actually placed her on top of a banyan tree, a branch of a banyan tree. And she was sitting there, and Krishna said, why don't you do one thing? What do you want to do? And Srimati Radharani said, I actually want to go around Vrindavan. Only we two are there right now. I want to go around Vrindavan and see this beautiful Vrindavan. I want to see Govardhan. I want to see Yamuna. This was her internal desire. And Krishna said, okay, fine. Very good. Why don't you sit on top of this branch, and I will come as a lion. And this is what their pastimes. And I will roar like a lion. And at that time, you can know that I have come, and then you can jump, and I will make you sit on my lap, and I will take you around the entire Vrindavan. And Radharani said, okay, fine. And she sat there, and Krishna just disappeared. He never came. And Srimati Radharani was sitting there waiting. The whole night had passed, but Krishna never came. So early in the morning, different gopis and manjaris have different services. Like Vishaka used to make betel nuts for Srimati Radhika and Krishna. Champakalata would come and actually sweep the place where they are there. And there was this Guna Manjari, who was the assistant to Champakalata. So there are gopis and there are manjaris. The manjaris assist the gopis. So there was this Guna Manjari who was assisting Champakalata, and she was also sweeping the floor. And suddenly she saw a new lake which has formed where she was sweeping the floor. And she saw where this lake has come from. Yesterday it was not there when I was sweeping the floor. And she looked up, and there she saw the queen of Vrindavan, Srimati Radhika, sitting on the branch and crying herself. And by her tears, she had actually made the lake. And she begged to this Guna Manjari. She said, my Shyam, my Krishna actually said that he will bring me, he'll come as a lion, and he will actually take me around Vrindavan. But he never came. And Guna Manjari also felt very bad that Srimati Radhika is feeling like this. And then Srimati Radhika actually begged to Guna Manjari. He said, but if you actually call him, he will come. He will surely come. So 4,500 years later, this Guna Manjari was none other than Gopala Bhatta Goswami. And he actually once went to Nepal and got 12 Shaligram Shilas. And these 12 Shaligram Shilas he used to wear on his neck. And he used to wear on his neck. And on the Narsingh Chaturdashi day, one day before going to Yamuna to take bath, he actually put all these Shaligram Shilas in a cloth and he hung it on the banyan tree. My dear devotees. And he hung it on that banyan tree, and he prayed that, I know the Shaligram Shilas are there, but I would like to worship a very nice form of the Lord. And he wanted to worship the form of the Lord. And at that time, he had a prayer in his mind. And this is the prayer that we found from the Vrindavan old scriptures in palm leaves. And the prayer says, Ha Nata Ramana Preshta Kwasi Kwasi Mahabhuja Dasyaste Kripanaya Me Sakhe Darshaya Sannidhim. It means Sri Gopala Bhatta Goswami said these was his words before he went to take bath. O Lord, you appeared from a pillar for your dear devotee, Prahlad. Please appear in front of me from Shaligram and show me your beautiful form of Radha Raman. That means one who roams. Raman. Raman means to roam around Braj with Srimati Radharani. Actually, he actually asked for Radha Raman himself because that was the request of Srimati Radhika. And hearing this ardent plea the next day on Narshing Chaturdashi, that Damodar Shila actually became the beautiful face of Radharaman. And this is not my narration, my dear devotees. In fact, we found a very beautiful verse in Bhakti Ratnakar by Narahar Chakravarti in the fourth wave, where he says, by the humble prayer of Gopal Bhatta Goswami, the world famous Simha, in fact, the Narsingha, appeared in front of him in the form of Radharaman. This is a very beautiful connection between Lord Narsingha and our most favorable deity of Vrindavan, which is none other than Radharaman. And this even today forms a very big festival. Bhakti Ratnakar Narahari says, the full moon day of month of Vishaka, Lord Krishna appeared in the form of Narsimha for the pleasure of Radharani, so that Radharani sits on the back of Krishna, who came in the form of a lion to do a yatra. Therefore, this festival, even today, if you go to the Radharaman temple, is called as Simha Asan Yatra by Gopala Bhatta Goswami. So this is the beautiful pastime, and today we have the wonderful Sri Sri Radha Raman, which we can all worship. He is so beautiful that people actually go to the temple and use binoculars to see him, though he is small. But if you actually do a very close up, you can actually also see the beautiful two teeth of Krishna, right? Because he is the most beautiful. And this is Gopala Bhatta Goswami. So, in fact, it can be a separate session in itself taken by other devotees. But just on this day, we can remember Sri Sri Radha Raman. We can pray to him to let us allow to form our sambandha as shown by Sanatana Goswami in his works. And let us also pray to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that we remember the Goswamis every day. We remember their contributions every day, and we remember their great, great glories, so that we can always stay in Krishna consciousness. Gopala Bhatta Goswami ki jai, Sanatana Goswami ki jai, Radha Raman ki jai, Radha Madan Mohan ki jai. I thank once again all the devotees for giving me this opportunity to speak about the glories of the Lord. If there are any mistakes, any incorrect renditions, that is purely mine. If you found anything that was nice, that is all due to the previous acharyas in our glorious line. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. If there are any questions and comments, we'll take, and then afterwards we'll move to the Japa talk for 5 minutes. If that's fine, Shyam Sundar Jagannath Prabhu. Any questions or comments? I think Shyam Sundar Prabhu is speaking on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to add something to which you said that the renunciates, they do not carry any material wealth, but what they carry is much greater than all the wealth in the 14 planetary systems.
Yep.
Now, this kind of a same kind of a pastime was seen when Srila Jiva Goswami sent Narottam Das Thakur, Shyamananda Pandit, and Srinivas Acharya with the original manuscripts of Sanatan Goswami, Jiva Goswami, as well as all the other Goswamis. And he sent them to Bengal and Orissa for preaching. And he constructed a wonderful cart in which all these scriptures were carried. I mean, it was nicely sealed with proper guards, etc. And when they reached the border of Bengal from Bihar, the king of that place, it's called, I mean, I forgot his name, something called Vishnupur or something like that. He had an astrologer who had told him to look, some huge wealth is coming and we should plunder that. And so accordingly, the king, who was actually a dacoit, that is, by day he was a king, by night he was a dacoit, he arranged for all this entire spiritual wealth to be stolen, not knowing that it was spiritual. He thought it was maybe gold, ruby, diamond, whatever. He took that entire cart when all the guards, etc., were sleeping in the night. And the next day, when Narottam Das Thakur, Shyamananda Pandit, and Srinivas Acharya woke up, they were aghast to find that all the manuscripts had gone. But as we all know, Krishna has some different plan altogether. And Narottam Das Thakur and Shyamananda Pandit, they proceeded to Kheturi for preaching. And Srinivas Acharya said that I will stay here and try to locate all those manuscripts, which he eventually did. And that king, he eventually surrendered to Srinivas Acharya. He became his disciple, and this entire village, Vana Vishnupur, became Vaishnavas due to the preaching of Srinivas Acharya.
Yeah.
And all those manuscripts, etc., were recovered.
Yes.
So, like you said, that yes, these renunciates, they do not carry any material wealth, but they carry the spiritual wealth, and that sort of liberates, we do not know whom. I mean, Krishna has his own plan. So this was a small pastime I thought I could share, which is somewhat like the Sanat.
Yeah, Prabhu. Anybody else? Thank you so much, Prabhu, for sharing that pastime. Anybody else who has any other questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandat Pranam.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you for the wonderful renditions of the pastimes. You know, with so much love and bhava you explained to us. Very grateful for that. The 64 limbs of devotional service mentioned in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, out of which the 5 are most essential, if we say it. That's the same thing our acharyas gave us a very simple way, ABCD. Association of Devotees, Srimad Bhagavatam, chanting the holy name, and then deity service. Unfortunately, devotees like us, we are not residing in any dhams, you know. But in spite of that, trying to do some devotional service as much as, you know, as Prabhupada said, we are so tiny, what we can do much, you know.
Right.
So from these great personalities, pastimes, we have the personality like Sanatana Goswami, you know, exalted in that renunciation. We also have Raghunath Das Goswami, who was filthy rich. And he utilized all this wealth also in Krishna's service. So how this renunciation properly we should engage it, Prabhu. We know theoretically, yes, wealth is meant for Krishna. When it comes for personal use, no, 90% is for me, 10% for Krishna. That's what it comes. So how to gradually develop that? We definitely we cannot imitate the Goswamis. At least you know.
Right.
We should carry that mood, and we have to leave it for the next generation as well.
Right.
So, if you give some insight on that, to be grateful.
So I think that's a very good subject matter. In fact, we actually see that renunciation in itself, Srila Prabhupada also mentions about the dhamvas in multiple places in multiple different ways. He also mentions that one should not eternally stay in Vrindavan. You should surcharge your batteries and you should go and preach to others who don't have it. In fact, that was the mood of Bhakti Charu Maharaj also. And that is the mood of the perfect renunciant. Renunciant is not interested in his own liberation or his own. He could have very well spent his time in Vrindavan or Mayapur or Ujjain rendering service, but his mood was actually to go there and fight along and spread the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So renunciation, while in the material world, generally people look at money as a motive, but in a larger context, Srila Prabhupada has given us the beautiful further purport of what Rupa Goswami gave us. Anya abhilashita shunyam jnana karma upakritam Krishna Anushilanam bhakti itaruttama. What is favorable to Krishna? And jnana and karma, all the activities of jnana and karma all put together, we'll have to do favorable to Krishna and not favorable to us, keeping us in the center. That is the greatest renunciation. In fact, he made the definition of bhakti around these four constructs, and we should learn that some other day. So if we are utilizing our money to stay healthy, eat nice foodstuffs offered to Krishna, that's also renunciating our personal interest, because we are interested in Krishna and Krishna's consciousness. If you're buying a nice laptop so that we can research so many things on the scriptures and give lectures, that is also seen as devotional service. So while direct engagement to Krishna should be there, but that is not the only motive of renunciation. Renunciation is to 24 hours think of Krishna, and sometimes it might not be a direct devotional service. It might be secondary, tertiary, or the fourth or the fifth one, and that is where we should be interested in. So we should develop this constant thinking that how is this activity helping Krishna consciousness? Right from thinking about progeny, because if you look at Sanatana Goswami and Hari Bhakti Vilas, what he wrote about Garbhadana Samskar, he wrote about the Kartik Mahatmya, he wrote about everything inside that book, which seemingly might not be seen as devotional service, but those are different ways in a devotee's life that he can engage keeping Krishna in the center, and that is perfect renunciation from this material world. So from a wealth point of view, we should have at least a constant quota that we give to Krishna. We should, whatever is applicable in the current circumstances, whatever we have committed to Krishna. And the other extended forms of wealth, knowledge, intelligence, we should give to Krishna. That is also seen as renunciation. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, bro. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments? Okay, if none, then we move on to Jagannath Govind Prabhu, if he's there, for the 5-minute Japa talk. Prabhu, you're on mute, I guess. Jagannath Govind Prabhu.
Can anybody hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. If you can arrange your camera in such a way there's something blocking it on the right. Oh yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yes.
So Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So thank you very much, Haridas Prabhu, for a very nice insight into the pastimes of Sanatana Goswami. It's really an eye-opener for us as to how we should ourselves lead or tread in that path, and in our own small way try to follow. We cannot, of course, imitate, as has been told by Srila Prabhupada and the other Acharya. So that being said, and the other thing which you established very clearly is Sanatana Goswami represents the Sambandha aspect of the relationship. So, and as you had rightly pointed out, that the Sambandha is established in all its richness, in all its purity, through the way we take the holy names, do our japa in the morning. So last week we had talked about three practices which, if adopted, would improve our standard of chanting. They are right posture, clear pronunciation, and hearing the mantras. As I had mentioned last week, we have this devotee in Punjabi Bagh temple in Delhi. He gives a short japa talk every day, just before they are about to commence the japa session in the temple during Mangalarti time. And the talk, which lasts only for about 3 to 4 minutes, it's very, very potent, and he touches on various different perspectives each day. And it's the best part is that it is available on YouTube. So, as Satyesha Govinda Prabhu had requested me that I could take the content and share with all the devotees during these classes every week. So this is what I had done last week also. So this week also, I'll be giving this japa talk based on the perspectives given by Rukmini Krishna Prabhu. And here it goes. So last week we saw how important it was for us to do a good quality chanting, as it sort of marks the essence of devotional service. And in fact, the chanting ranks higher in priority to even temple worship, book distribution, etc., etc. Because the chanting sadhana, not only does it give us a good foundation on which the edifice of devotional service can be built up, but it establishes the sambandha relationship. And so while last week was on one perspective, right posture, clear pronunciation, and hearing the mantras, we'll see how it can be further enriched, the process of chanting. We often happens with me that the first 2 or 3 rounds, when I start off in the morning, are done fairly attentively. I try to take pains to hear after it starts its work. And unfortunately, we follow the mind. And today, we'll try and address this particular aspect as to how the mind begins its wandering journey and how we can try to overcome that. Because, I mean, even when I was in Mayapur, I mean, we heard quite a lot of classes where Jananivas Prabhu, Pankajangri Prabhu, they used to insist or emphasize that when we are doing our japa, we should hear the mantras. Of course, there are higher aspects above that, but the most primary thing is that we hear the mantra. Or if not the entire, the 16 syllables, at least the word Hare, at least the word Hare Krishna. I mean, that hearing part of it is what does the cleansing part of it, which we saw in that first verse of Shiksashtakam class. And I must highly recommend this book written by Bhurijan Prabhu called Japa. In fact, I also read that book and I've given that book, distributed the book to quite a few devotees. It is definitely a must read for all devotees. And Bhurijan Prabhu takes pains to examine each of these difficulties, and he provides solutions. Not only does he identify the problems of taking Sudhana, but he knows what are the problems because he himself has gone through that, and he shows us the way whereby how we can improve our japa. Now we need to understand that the mind is part of the subtle body. The other two are, of course, intelligence and false ego. The mind conspires with the intelligence to give us the feeling that we are servants of the false ego. So their duty is to ensure that the false ego is always maintained and nourished. This is their duty, and they do this duty admirably. So the effect of this is that we will forget Krishna and establish the false ego identity, I am the body. And that will become uppermost in us. So I am the center of this entire, whatever is my arena, and everything which revolves within that, I must be kept on top. So this is the aspect which comes about when we do chanting. That is the Bahiranga Shakti of the Lord, that is Maya Devi, she acts through the mind. And Maya Devi, as we all know, is a filtration process, because everybody is destined for the higher, Krishna's Goloka planets. But the filtration process is done by Maya Devi. And she acts through the mind to ensure that all these sort of anarthas, she herself will create stumbling blocks. But then once we are able to overcome these stumbling blocks, she will facilitate our entry back home, back to Godhead. So she acts through the mind. So no sooner do we sit down to start a japa, Maya Devi starts her activities through the mind and takes us away from hearing the holy name, which is the most crucial thing. Initially 1 or 2 rounds, they go very nicely, 3-4 rounds, then the tricks will start. So she has a lot of weapons in her armory, Maya Devi. And the mind, through the process of accepting and rejecting thoughts, she tries to foster the false ego. And here, the intelligence helps the mind in executing those plans of the mind as to how to is nice. So according to situated on the platform of goodness, while intelligence is on the platform of passion. Now, the function of intelligence is to plan how those thoughts of the mind would get executed in the future, or while whatever has happened in the past, how they could have been remedied. So when we are chanting, we are not in the present, we are either in the past, said that happened today, the whole day is ahead of me, what are the things which I will do, how I will plan my day, this is what I have got to do. In fact, while doing service in the accounts department in Mayapur, I used to explain, yes, this is the vouchers I have to pass, all these kind of things that my vote when I'm doing chanting. Now that is fortunate or unfortunate is what is to be seen. But it's simply brilliant, the kind of ideas which get generated when we sit down to do.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, we only have 10 minutes.
Japa. So all this parallel process saying Hare Krishna, so the mind and the intelligence keeps us grounded either in the past or in the future. Whereas we need to be conscious of the present. That is, when we are doing japa, it is a private meeting between. So when intelligence join this game of the past or the future, we get into Rajagun, and the entire process speeds up. And we, the Atma, are also swept swept away in this intense time. How the entire game functions, what Gurujan Prabhu recommends in that book called Japa, as well as what Rukmini Krishna Prabhu brings out, is that we need to observe how the mind distracts us and try to bring it back to hearing the holy. The moment the mind goes into the future mind, and to do this again and again, we know that Arjuna, who's such an exalted devotee that we do not compare anything in that totem pole, he himself is telling Krishna that Chanchalehi Mana Krishna, that I cannot control my mind. And it is, I mean, I can find controlling the wind easier than controlling the mind. Controlling the wind itself is great, but then mind, he says, is impossible. But what solution does Krishna offer to him? 6.35 Bhagavad Gita. He says we have to continuously endeavor. There is no shortcut. So this is what Srila Prabhupada, as well as all the acharyas in our movement, have been saying, that yes, the japa session has to go on. I mean, there is no stoppage. Howsoever good or bad our japa is, but then when the mind speeds off in different directions, we have to endeavor to bring it back to hearing the name. And after 16 syllables, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If you hear the entire 16 syllables, brilliant, 10 on 10. It may not be possible. You hear even the word Hare Krishna or Hare Rama, Rama Rama, even just 2 words out of this entire one mantra, even that is auspicious, is what Gurujan Prabhu said. So at least something we should try and endeavor. And when we see that, and when Krishna sees that endeavor, that is when the results start kicking. He sees that yes, we are trying, but then we may be on a losing wicket, but then Krishna helps out. Mahaprabhu will definitely help out. So we have to bring our mind back to hearing that holy name. So it is a trap laid by Maya just to ensure that we pass this test, because those who are not able to make the grade do not get going back home, back to God. So our nice presentations the mind brings to us. For instance, it has quite often happened to me also. I mean, especially in Pune temple, I was there early morning. We used to sit for a japa session in the temple hall. Everybody will be engrossed in doing japa, and suddenly the mind will tell you, see how nicely you are doing japa. That fellow is falling asleep. He is no good. That is also a distraction. This is a trap laid by Maya. The only business we have when we do japa is, and we will not current, we are literally at a LKG level. Of course, some of you may be even more higher, but most of us, we are at the LKG level, and at this level, as Jananimas Prabhu had quite often mentioned, we hear the mantras. That will be the first stepping stone. And eventually,
Prabhu, the meeting might finish in 2 minutes because of this. Just letting you know.
Okay, I'll try to hasten this up. Yeah. So, we have to eventually get to bringing the mind back to hearing the holy name. Now, a line from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. Please do not do Google search on all of this and get into finding out what this is. But they have a very nice dictum, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. means stilling the mind in order to experience the ultimate reality and move towards self-realization. Of course, the path is a little bit of Mayavadi philosophy, so I would not encourage you to get into that. But what the meaning they are wanting to convey is that we should try to bring down the pace of the mind so that we hear the Mahamantras. And another way, another trick which Burijan Prabhu has said is that you try to ignore the impulses sent out by the mind. And when the mind sees that you are constantly ignoring either the good things or the bad things, you are chanting nicely, that fellow is sleeping, you ignore all this. You try to bring back the mind and concentrate on hearing the mantras. The mind will also come to realize that, look, whatever propositions I am putting forward, this fellow is not hearing. He is not giving patta to all of that. He is intent on carrying out his own agenda, which is to hear the holy name. I might as well surrender. I mean, of course, that is the end result, and we will get there. The only thing which we have to do, as Krishna mentioned in 6.35 Bhagavad Gita, persevere. We have to hear, and that Nam will reveal quite a lot of things for us. So, of course, it is easier said than done. I myself am going through this. I find it pretty difficult. So, it's not that just because I am speaking, I have realized all of this. No, I am also in LKG boat. So, I have also got to do this. But I thought I could share this with all of you. And please feel free to go on YouTube and search for this Japa talk. He has done about 70 episodes already. 70 episodes of 3 to 4 minutes each. So it's a wonderful Japa talk which he gives every day. Rukmini Krishna Prabhu Japa talk, Punjabi Bagh Temple. You will get the YouTube connection. Or the link is also available with Satyeshwar Prabhu.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. I think we are just on time before we finish. It's just 10 seconds to go.